CIO, and Stephen Moore's editorial board member for the Wall Street Journal. Well, here's the problem, and everybody here who watches Hardball knows it. Republicans don't want to see a tax increase of any kind, including exposure of people who make over $100,000 a year to more Social Security taxes. They don't want to see these loopholes plugged. They don't want to pay any more taxes. They figure we're taxed enough. Democrats, on the other hand, as a group, really like the amount of government they'd like to see the government spend. In fact, they'd like to see the government spend more every year. I see these proposals every year. Democrats have new proposals. Everybody's got a new proposal to spend more money. So you guys don't want to cut anything in spending. You guys don't want to raise any taxes.
Oh, that's
it sounds
exactly true.
well. Let's get to that's the cartoon view that I start with. Correct me, you first, Thea. Where am I wrong in saying you're willing to cut spending? You're not willing. Are you willing?
We are
Tell me
willing
where.
to cut some spending.
Where?
But I think
Some spending? The federal budget deficit now is $1.4 trillion. That's our deficit. Where are you going to cut in any way that's going to deal with that deficit?
Well, there's two issues. One is that the immediate problem we have is a jobs problem, not a deficit problem. The deficit problem is a medium to long-term problem down the road, which we can address. We should address the deficit problem mainly with revenues, with tax increases. And the people who should pay those tax increases are the people who have
What
given themselves
percentage
a
of the
party.
American economy are people willing to pay in taxes? I'm looking at a chart here from a liberal. Here's Robert Samuelson basically saying that by the year 2035, if we don't change our ways, this is, by the way, like Dickens in A Christmas Carol, the ghost of Christmas future is coming. And it tells us that it'll be up to 30% roughly of all the economy will go to the federal government in spending if we don't do something about it. Will the American people pay 30% of the economy in taxes? Because you say the answer is revenues. Are we willing to spend that much money in taxes to pay for a federal government that spends 30% of the economy?
I'll tell you how we have to get spending under control, which is health care costs. That is what's driving the deficit. We could do that with a public option for one thing. We could do that with a whole bunch of other things. We're not
wasting time because that's already been considered and been rejected. So what are we talking about?
Well, we are talking. There are actually a couple of things.
I know this is the liberal argument.
How is a public option going to lower costs? You're going to put more people under the government system. That's going to lower costs. I mean, if you're going to talk about lowering the deficit,
everybody in this business has a way to hide.
Right.
That's your hole.
Look,
what's your hole?
I don't have a hole.
No,
look,
because you
I
guys
agree
really
with
don't
you.
want to. You don't want to deal with the tax problem.
No, actually, I do. What I think we ought to do is we should have a much more sane tax system that lowers rates, broadens the base. We did this in 1986.
Is Tom Donahue fighting for that? Are the business community fighting for lower rates?
I think there would be a bipartisan consensus. You know, I think one thing we would probably agree on: the best way to increase revenues is to grow this economy. We've got to get more jobs. But this is really important.
As big as the economy
We've got to get the economy growing, or we're never going to make any progress on this. I'm sorry, but taxing the rich isn't going to do it. Even if you took, let me just say this, even if you took every single penny of every rich person in America, 100%, you couldn't even still balance the budget. You still couldn't balance the budget.
I was too tough there. Let me take something we all like. I'm a liberal in this completely. I think Social Security was a brilliant idea of Franklin Roosevelt. And the brilliance of it wasn't means tested. So it wasn't a welfare program. When you got your Social Security check, you were proud to get it because you paid into it your whole working life. And everybody right now getting it has a full right to it. That was the genius of it. It didn't look like socialism. It wasn't socialism because it was paid for not with general taxes, but by a dedicated payroll tax that you paid into, and when you're 65, you got it, okay? There's a problem today. Back in 1930-something when we passed the law, the Democrats did, people didn't live much past 65. So when you insured a person not to live past 65, that was a pretty good bet. Today, people are living into their 80s, thank God. They get good health care. That's another issue we can get to. How do you deal with that simple fact? There are going to be more retirees per worker. And that's a problem that has nothing to do with right-wing, left-wing. How are we going to keep Social Security sustainable?
Well,
what's the labor issue? You're with the AFL-CIO.
I'm with the AFL-CIO.
What's the labor proposal?
If we raise the cap on the income that's subject to the Social Security tax, you get about 3/4 of the income shortfall that you need. And there are a couple of other little changes you can make. There are tweaks that you can make in the Social Security system.
But those people will never get that money back.
No, that isn't right. That isn't right. Well,
I mean, increase their benefits?
It is a somewhat progressive system.
You're basically taxing people in a way that they'll never get it back in benefits. Therefore, it's becoming more like welfare.
But we've understood for a long time that the Social Security system is a pay-as-you-go system, and that we have a huge, baby boom.
But is it a rich people pay so middle-class people can benefit program? Because that's what you're proposing.
There's always been some element of progressivity.
Yeah, look,
what's your response to our proposal? She says basically this is the proposal on the table.
We need more jobs, not less jobs. How are you going to get more jobs?
How are you going to deal with Social Security problem? People living longer,
I think
fewer workers.
We have to eventually, through a voluntary system, move this towards a personal account system. Number one, where people want to do it, allow people to put it into a 401k so they actually get a good return on the money.
But how does the money build up to pay for the cost?
What you do is you basically give young workers, look, I have an 18 and 17-year-old, the worst investment they will make in their lifetime is Social Security. They're going to get a lousy return on it. If you let them take
that doesn't solve the problem.
Yes, it does, because what you do is then they're not going to collect benefits. They'll get the money that's.
Oh, they don't want benefits. So your son will forego benefits.
You get your benefit from your individual account, which I think most people. But here's the thing. I will agree with you on.
By the way, there's a problem with that thing, and I'll tell you what the problem. Because I used to argue this with my dad growing up, and I took the very libertarian view as a kid.
Right.
I don't want any government around me. I mean, tell them what to do. If I want to save money, I'll save it. He says this, and my dad is gone now. But here's the thing he said. A lot of people aren't responsible. They don't save money. They're strapped economically. They don't save money.
It's a forced savings plan,
so at 65, they'll be on welfare.
No. It's a forced savings plan. But let's get to the other two issues that are so important. First of all, raising the retirement age. Of course we have to. This is a no-brainer.
Where are you at? Here, by the way, let's get to date. I'm not worried about this one. Okay, I was just whacked for getting older. Okay, fine. 2075, I'm not worried about. Maybe you folks are.
Most people aren't even born yet.
It'll go to 69. Now, I think the problem in it is you're driving a big semi out there. There's certain jobs you're doing the thing out in the road.
I'll live with that.
There's certain jobs that you cannot do late in your 60s. Now you can hang around the law firm till you're 90.
Right. You know, but you know what? If we had indexed the benefit age to the increase in life expectancy, people would be.
Okay, how do you deal with this life expectancy? A lot of people watching right now are over 65, and they're saying, "Wait a minute, you can raise to 69 by 2075. Well, I can live with that because I'm not going to live with that. I'm not going to be here." But
there's a real problem.
You got a problem with that?
With raising the retirement age? Well, because part of what happens is that people who have tougher jobs, manual jobs, work harder at the lower incomes,
we could adjust
don't
for that.
live as long.
Well, we can adjust for that, but the point is, people are healthier at every single age. And the other thing is, you know, the most amazing thing is, the other thing this commission proposes is a progressive indexing so that wealthier people over time get a lesser benefit. And why are liberals?
Right, and I've got left here, and I want to move this.
I'm in favor of that.
I want to run through this because this is the plan.
But are you in favor of that?
I had a plan that was given real quickly. Should we cut military spending? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Should we cut the federal workforce by 10%?
No.
20. And we should cut the benefits.
Should we add a 15% or 15-cent tax to the federal gas tax, gasoline tax?
Yes, as long as we dedicate those funds to improving our transportation infrastructure, which we desperately need.
Medicare premiums higher? Cost more? No.
Absolutely not.
I guess
that's putting the burden of adjustment on the people who can least afford to pay.
Okay, and you disagree on the retirement age, so you agree on the gas tax as long as it goes to the
I'm not in favor of that.
He doesn't agree on that.
I'm not in favor of any tax increase unless it's a lower.
How about the military? Back to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's waste in every agency of government.
No, but cutting down commitments. I mean, this isn't just saving. This waste and abuse stuff is so BS.
But you can,
Are you going to cut down the amount of countries we're going to occupy? Right. We're in Korea now. We're in Germany. At some point, you got to pull back the commitments if you're going to cut the spending. You can't just say.
All right. Look, I'm not a military expert, but I will say this.
Common sense tells that.
I think the Pentagon can take a hit just like every other.
Are you willing to reduce our military role in the world?
In some places, yes.
Are you? Reduce our military role in the world because you can't have the same amount of military power for less money.
I think we need to be strategic about how we do it, but I think there are ways that we could do it.
Okay, well, we're getting somewhere here.
Yes,
we are getting somewhere because I like your exemption. If you have a real job that has real work and you sweat while you do it, maybe you let the guy retire at 65.
Okay, I can live with that. But, you know, look, we can't have people living.
If you're unionized, you should get out early, right? How's that for a deal?
You know, in the year 2075, people are going to live to 100.
It's nice to meet you. Thank you. Thank you. I do think the public option has been thoroughly debated on this network. It will be debated again. It's not part of the deal right now. Up next, what is Senator James Imhoff demanding before he agrees to attend a holiday parade in Tulsa? This is what happens every Christmas. It's about this stuff. Anyway, you're going to be very familiar fight coming up here. Stick around for that. It's in the sideshow. You're watching Hardball, only on MSNBC.